and welcome to Crash Course World History. I'm Evan Espinoza and this is Brent O'Leary, and we will be your hosts for this lesson.
Today we will be talking about World War II, a global conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945.
The two sides of the conflict were the Axis powers consisting of Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies consisting France, Great Britain, and the United States and the Soviet Union.
World War II was the largest and bloodiest war, with 75 to 80 million casualties.
It began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland.
On September 3rd, only 2 days later, Great Britain and France declared war on Germany.
After the war began, Japan declared neutrality due to their war with China. The United States pursued a stance of isolationism, and Canada joined the Allies by declaring war on Germany.
After war was declared, a so-called phony period began, a time marked by a lack of conflict from September 3rd, 1939 to May 10th, 1940.
On May 10th, Belgium, Holland, and Luxembourg were invaded by Germany.
Because of this, Great Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain resigned and replaced by Winston Churchill. He began creating plans with U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt in hopes of obtaining aid.
On May 12th, the Germans crossed the border into France, quickly overtaking the country and leading to an evacuation of 338,000 soldiers at Dunkirk on June 4th.
On June 10th, Italy allied with Germany, and on June 14th, the Germans captured Paris.
At this point, chances of an Allied victory were looking slim, but they didn't lose hope.
On June 21st, France accepted Germany's terms of arms, and the Vichy government was established.
Tensions with Britain continued to rise, but the air-based Battle of Britain didn't begin until August 13th.
Great Britain was outnumbered 2,669 to 704, and the London Blitz began on September 7th as the Germans attempted to capture London.
In mid-September, the United States established the first peacetime draft, and soon all men 21 to 36 were required to register.
On October 28th, the Italians invaded Greece.
As the war intensified, on January 10, 1941, the United States established the Lend-Lease Act to Congress, allowing the Allies to borrow weapons from the United States.
This act led to extremely mixed responses from the public. Many people criticizing the U.S. government's lack of respect for their previous declaration of neutrality, and others wanting a future American involvement.
On June 22nd, Germany launched the Barbarossa Plan in an attempt to attack the Soviets without issuing a declaration of war.
They achieved their first success of the plan on July 12th when Luftwaffe raids attacked Moscow.
The U.S. gave aid to the USSR, including an extension of the Lend-Lease Act, but chaos would then continue.
Turning attention to the Pacific, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, leading to U.S. involvement when they declared war on Japan.
Not long after, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., and the Battle of the Atlantic began January 13th in hopes of depriving the European allies of supplies.
Simultaneously, the final solution was formed, planning to eliminate roughly 11 million people.
In response to the perceived Japanese threat on U.S. soil, President Roosevelt released Executive Order 9066, putting 110,000 Japanese Americans in internment camps.
On May 7th and 8th, the Battle of Coral Sea ensued, as the U.S. began taking a somewhat offensive tactic against the Japanese. Not long after, the Battle of Midway takes place, making a turning point with an American victory.
Allied victories appeared more rapidly throughout 1942, as on November 8th, Operation Torch began in northern Africa, and by May 12, 1943, Axis forces surrendered, leaving North Africa under Allied control.
And on July 5th, the Soviets win the Battle of Kursk, and Luftwaffe loses for the first time.
The Axis powers continued to crumble on July 25th when Mussolini is arrested and martial law is put in place in Italy.
Soon, Allied powers take control of Italy, and on September 8th, German forces moved to gain control over the country.
On September 8th, German forces moved to gain control over the country, and on October 6th, Italy declares war on Germany.
Allied forces continue their battle towards victory, and on June 6, 1944, D-Day, also known as Operation Overlord, takes place.
This was a massive Allied invasion of Normandy, France, where 24,000 paratroopers landed on the beach.
Allied success not only occurs on the Western Front, but also the Eastern Battle against Japan, where American troops slowly gain control of Pacific territories.
In Europe, the Allies began pushing Hitler's forces northward out of France, the casualties eventually numbering over 12,000.
After 4 long years of German occupation, Paris is freed on August 24th.
Unfortunately, prosperity doesn't last as Operation Market Garden resulted in the death of 17,000 Allied soldiers on September 17th.
American forces continue to fight their way to mainland Japan, slowly capturing the Philippines as the fall continues.
On December 16th, the Battle of the Bulge begins, marking a massive American loss at the Ardennes Forest.
By January 30th, 1945, the Allies successfully regained the territory they had lost.
Celebrating their success, the major Allied leaders met at the Yalta Conference on February 7th, discussing plans for the post-war world.
Alongside the apparent successes in Europe, American forces landed in Hiroshima on February 19th, and firebomb raids ensued for the next month.
On April 1st, the Japanese fight is taken to Okinawa, where the bloodiest battle of the Pacific takes place, ending in 192,000 Japanese soldiers and civilians dead, and over 12,000 Americans.
On April 26th, Soviet forces entered a divided Germany, and 4 days later, Hitler is believed to commit suicide.
On May 7th, Germany surrenders, bringing the European war front to an end.
In order to settle the peace, the Big Three met at the Potsdam Conference from July 17th to August 2nd, discussing how to deal with the war-torn state of Europe.
In addition to conferring over the state of Japan, the leaders also agreed upon demands for unconditional Japanese surrender.
Originally developed to use on Germany, the bomb Little Boy was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6th. Despite the immediate casualties, the Japanese refused surrender.
Soon, a two-front invasion of Japan began August 8th, when the Soviet Union declared war as well.
A second bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki on August 9th, killing over 40,000 instantly and finally causing Japan to consider surrender.
On August 10th, they are denied conditional surrender and eventually relent to the request for an unconditional one on August 14th.
On August 30th, American occupation of Japan began in order to restore the country to order and create a lasting democracy.
Finally, on September 2nd, 1945, the Japanese signed an agreement of unconditional surrender aboard the USS Missouri. As a result of technological advancements in the Second World War and the increasing distance of combat, the poems Vergis meine and How to Kill by British Second World War soldier Keith Douglas wrestle with dehumanizing the enemy and acknowledge their humanity. With ships, one of the biggest changes in naval technology in World War II was the use of aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers became the most important ships in the Navy. They were able to launch air attacks from anywhere in the ocean. And in the air, different types of planes were developed for specific tasks. They were small, fast fighter planes designed for air-to-air combat, large bombers that could drop huge bombs on enemy targets, planes designed to land and take off from aircraft carriers, and large transport planes used to deliver supplies to soldiers. Other important advancements in aircraft included the first military helicopters and the first jet-powered fighter planes. On the land, although tanks were first used in World War I, it was during World War II that tanks became a major military force. Hitler utilized tanks in his fast-moving Panzer divisions. They enabled him to quickly take over much of Europe, using a tactic called Blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war. With explosives, perhaps the largest leap in technology during World War II was the atomic bomb. This bomb caused a massive explosion by using nuclear reactions. It was was used by the United States to bomb the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Some interesting facts about World War II technology. At one point, the United States used the Native American language of the Navajo people as a secret code that the Germans were unable to crack. Also, technology was used to formulate precise rations or food given to soldiers to make sure they got right amount of nutrition and energy.